Alright, so it's been absolutely ages since I've made any updates on this channel, and mostly this was because I've lost an interest in creating content for YouTube, and partially I also didn't have much of a free time to do anything, and so these two reasons combined more or less explain why I have been absent for so long. But I haven't stopped keeping fish. Actually, if anything, I have more tanks than I used to have before, and I have more fish than I used to have before. So I will start, basically this video is sort of an overview of how the things are, and just taking you through all the tanks and all the fish that I currently have. And I'll start with my fish office. So this is a sort of the space where I work at home, and when I work at home, half of this place is sort of a working place, and the other half is a wall of tanks. I don't call it a gallery, it's more of a, fish office or something like it. And previously I used to have fewer tanks in here. Now I have 10 tanks in here. Lots of things happening, and recently I've been sort of on a buying spree, or sort of couldn't contain myself from buying quite a lot of fish. So yeah, some of these tanks are a bit overstocked, but I'm working on relieving the situation by rehoming some extra fish that I have. So let's get started with this tank here. And this is a bit of a holding or temporary tank, and what I have in here is my group of bleeding heart tetras. I previously used to have them in this larger tank, but I moved them in here because they're very nervous, and whenever I keep them in a larger tank, they just go nuts and they try to jump out, or they dash around the tank, hitting themselves on the walls. And in here they're still a bit nervous, and they're still a bit jumpy, but they're more or less okay in here. I also have here some Amazon puffers. This is a recent purchase of mine, and they are actually also very nervous fish, and they used to be even more nervous. Now they're a bit calmer. But eventually both of these groups of fish will go down into this tank. This is a larger tank, and it's a longer. That one is kind of a cube tank. So yeah, this was a bit of a temporary holding situation to see how both of these species will work together, and they work together perfectly fine. The Amazon puffers are absolutely peaceful. They ignore tetras. I also have here two Hygrophila L236 super whites. There's one which I think is a female, and there's one here which I think is a male. So far no breeding, and but yeah, I'm hoping that they will start breeding once I remove all the other fish from here, and they will realize that things are calmer. When it comes to plants, this is a really mixture of everything. There is some Cryptocoraini becketi. In the back I have Echinodorus argentinensis here. There's some Vallisneria. This is just a regular Vallisneria rubra. Hygrophila guyanensis, and lots of stem plants in the back. It's a mixture of Limnophila sessiflora, Ludwigia repens, Samratalas. Well, basically all sort of plant cuttings that I had from different tanks that were going in here. Moving on. Well, this is Unheated tank. I have here a relatively large school of CPDs, Celestial Pearl Danios. They are a bit shy, but they will come out eventually. This is actually a breeding group, because occasionally I see here juveniles. I also have here my colony of yellow neon cherry shrimp, Neocaridina shrimp. There's one of them in here. We can focus. Yes, we can. Apparently only, I think, females are that colorful, and males are sort of plain. But I guess that's a problem with this particular strain, because I haven't been selectively breeding it, and I ended up with one of the sexes being more colorful than the other. Right, so in here I also have a group of black tiger bodies. They're called Dario SP Myanmar. And in terms of plants, I used to have a carpet of different crypts in here, but I recently had a crypt melt, so I lost quite a lot of Cryptocarina bullosa in here. Now they're going back to life. You can see them regrowing, and, but they used to be larger, but they are growing back. There's also some Cryptocarina parva doing okay. That's Echinodorus rosé, and that's Echinodorus compact. Or no, sorry, that's Echinodorus reni, or reni, whatever you want to call it. In the back I have here this massive Aponogeton natans. I actually have to trim it literally every week because it covers the entire surface of the tank. It's flowering actually, and it's flowering a lot. So yeah, that's a peaceful and really nice setup. Moving on, in here I have my group of Mascara barbs. This is Daukinsia assimilis. These are not filament barbs, so they are not going to be as large and massive as filament barbs. They're almost full grown, but they still haven't sort of developed their adult coloration yet, because I guess they're still juveniles. They will probably grow a bit larger than that. Apologies for reflections. I'm trying to find an angle. Okay, that's an angle. And this is well, this is not escape, but I've tried to plant it as effectively as I can. So there's quite a lot of happening when it comes to plants. Lots of stem plants in the back. I'm not going to go through all the species. If you want to, I can do a more detailed review of this tank. There's kind of a wall of moss in here, and lots of massive Echinodorus argentinensis plants. There are at least, I think, 4 or 5 mother plants in here, in the front and in the back. So yeah, that's it in terms of this tank. I really like this group of Mascara barbs. They are very interactive, and although they are not colored up yet, but hopefully they will soon. And the next tank in here is what I call my Hygrophila tank, and it has Hygrophila siamensis tropica in here and Hygrophila guyanensis in the back. Some crypts in here, and Anubias nana on the rocks, as well as another Echinodorus argentinensis growing in the back. So in here originally I had my group of Hypancistera zebra. They're still here. They're not breeding. I'm not entirely sure whether I have both sexes here or only males, but there are 4 of them in here. I've also added here a school of cardinal tetras. I have here a few green neon tetras. You can see them around, and they're not as colorful as cardinal tetras, but they school together and they seem to enjoy being together. So that's a nice setup as well. Okay, moving on in here. What I've tried to create here is a black water setup. At some point I was too lazy to keep on adding leaves and other botanicals, so only partially black water. It has my breeding group of Nanostomus beckfordi, as well as some cardinal tetras, and down there I have juvenile Panaculus clostolifer. I think it's L06 or something like it. And yeah, they're quite shy, as it is always the case with Placos. In terms of plants, I only have here one Echinodorus argentinensis, which is starting to outgrow this tank now. Well, down there, which is actually a very difficult tank to film, I have my group of scarlet bodies. There's 1 male and about 4 females, but they're obviously very shy and very secretive, so it's nearly impossible to film them. I guess we could see some of the females, like one lurking in the moss, but other than that it's just impossible to find them in here, but they're definitely in there. Right. So these three IKEA tanks, well, I call them IKEA tanks because I've made them myself from IKEA shelf glasses. I have a video somewhere on the channel about these tanks. They're sort of breeding tanks. This one is where I try to colony breed CPDs, Celestial Pearl Danios. And well, it's full of different mosses and different stem plants in the back, and it is also suffering from algae issues, so it's a bit of a mess. And CPDs are hiding in the back. They're as shy as always, and well, they haven't bred here yet, but I know that eventually they will start breeding, and they normally like this sort of densely planted setups. So moving on, in here I have a pair of American flagfish, Jordanella floridae. There is both of them here. I'm hoping that they will spawn in here because they used to spawn in a community tank. They used to spawn in here a couple of times, and male was guarding eggs and he was literally terrorizing the whole tank. So I moved them in here, but well, they don't want to spawn in here. They've been here for a couple of weeks already, and they are not interested in spawning here. So we'll see what happens with that. In here I have two Nanostomus marginatus, or dwarf pencilfish. I'm also expecting them to breed. They're male and female, and they're actually the last ones I have left because they've been breeding for me for several generations, and now there's just literally last male and female. And they also not much willing to breed, at least at this point of time. But I'm giving them all this space and all the time and best food I can provide, hoping that they will spawn for me one more time. Alright, and the last tank in here is this Unheated, sort of a planted scape. It has my breeding group of white cloud mountain minnows, and they've been sort of colony breeding here non-stop until I've added this one paradise fish, female paradise fish. I'm trying to find where she is at. Yeah, she's hiding in the back. She's over there. She was also born in one of my tanks before. I used to have a group of red velvet, I think it's called red velvet paradise fish. Yeah, she's coming out now. So now she's predating on all the white cloud minnow fry. Yeah, normally she's very interactive like this, and she's a beautiful fish actually. Yes, and so she's a bit of a control measure, preventing white cloud mountain minnows from overpopulating this setup. I also have here a Danio chopre, or glow light Danios, but they're very shy as well. I can't really see them very often. Most of the plants here are stem plants, except this giant sage. I think the Latin name is Sagittaria platyphila or something like this. So it's an opposite of a dwarf sage that we normally have. This is a giant sage. And it's a beautiful plant, but it seems to grow only in this tank for me, so it doesn't grow anywhere else. Yeah, so really nice, very active unheated community in here. Well, you are probably, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you probably remember that I used to have this absolutely massive Echinodorus argentinensis mother plant in that corner over there. It used to be a huge plant. And if you're wondering what happened to it, I'm going to show it to you in a moment. So it's not dead, nothing bad happened to it, but it has eventually outgrown the tank that it was growing in. So one of those small tanks was in there and it was growing in that tank, but it has become just so massive and so huge that I had to replant it. And I'll show you where it is now at the moment. So it is now growing in this pot. It's a regular houseplant pot. It's filled partially with potting mix and partially, well, it's mostly filled with potting mix, I think sphagnum moss potting mix, something like it, topped with regular play sand and a layer of water. And it's actually quite likes to be here, quite likes to grow in this setup. It's not heated, there's nothing, there's no filtration or anything like it. There's some there's one grow light in here actually that is being shared between this palm and the Echinodorus, and the Echinodorus seems to do quite well in here. It's absolutely massive, you can see some of the renewal leaves, and it's, well, probably over 4 feet tall, something like that. And okay, talking about more fish tanks. This is a Hillstream setup which I showed you. Probably a video about setting up this tank was the last one I made on the channel. And now it's been a few months after this setup was completed. I have here a group of Stiphodon gobies. You can see some of them lurking in between the rocks. This is Stiphodon ornatus and a solo pandagara in here. Lots of Neocaridina shrimp and some snails. Well, this setup is unheated, and it has one powerful power head pushing water from the back. It's basically in here, the power head is in here. And in here I have a piece of driftwood all covered with different mosses, Phytonia on top, a Monstera in here, and some other creeping plants around the edges. Overall, this is a relatively peaceful and quiet setup. I don't see Stiphodon gobies very often. They come out occasionally, like right now. There's one of them, and there are a few of them popping out from under the rocks. But most of the time they're really shy, and I don't see them very often. Yes, I had before comments that this is an open top tank and they will climb out, but it's been probably like half a year then since I've got them in here, and I haven't had a single one escaping. And actually my observation is, as soon as they get settled, as soon as they become comfortable in the setup, they will never try to jump out or climb out, and I've never even seen them anywhere close to the surface. They would stay within these rocks, within the rock work, and that's how they're going to spend most of their time. The same goes with Pandagara. Obviously, when Pandagara is not settled, they will try to climb out. But this one, I had this one for probably like 3 or 4 years, so it's a pretty old Pandagara, and it's very well settled, so he or she has never tried to jump out or climb out of this tank. Absolutely beautiful fish. So this tank is going strong, and it's really nice. It's a quiet setup. It's in our bedroom, and I can't even hear any of the filtration sounds or anything like it. And last but not least is our display tank. It's a 350 liter jewel corner fish tank with my Altum angels and other South American fish. So what I have in here is a group of Altum angels. There are some Rio Orinoco Altums like this one here, and there are a few Rio Inirida Altums like that guy, this one, and that small one in here. So they're more or less the same size. They're still juveniles. They're probably less than a year old. Well, the older ones, the Orinoco ones, are probably about a year old. I also have here a school of penguin tetras. There are some black neon tetras and something that I bought relatively recently and I like very much is Maencausia haikoi. It's a massive, absolutely massive tetra, which looks like black neon tetra, but it's actually obviously very different. It's a different genus from black neons. They're very active. They're absolutely stunning, beautiful tetras. Very rare and very expensive here in the UK, so I'm really happy to have them. I have 4 of them in here, and they're not much of a schooling fish outside of feeding time, so most of the time they will stay in their sort of own territories, and they will swim all together only during feeding time. I will try to locate where the rest of them are, but they usually stay somewhere among the vegetation. But anyway, they're absolutely stunning fish. Well, in terms of fish population, I also have here my group of Hoplysoma CW28. That's the same Echinodorus which I've had probably for the last 4 or 5 years, so there's no changes. Well, in terms of plants, and those of you who have seen the first sort of iteration of that fish tank when I first set it up in December last year, it looked a bit different from what it looks now, because I've experimented with lots of different plants in here, and the big problem is actually Juvel's LED lights. They're not full spectre lights, they're just one spectre, one bright yellow spectre lights, and they are perfect at growing one type of plant organism, algae. So the algae issue have been absolute plague for this tank for a very long time, probably maybe for like 3 or 4 months. Now I can say that algae is almost completely under control. I don't have any visible algae in here. Well, you could probably still see some on the rocks, but for the most part I've managed to get it under control, but it was not an easy struggle. So the problem with the lights, and I can't really replace them. Well, yeah, obviously I can buy another lamp and put it on top, but it's not going to look as good as this lead in here, or I don't know if I can find full spectre Juvel lights which will fit the same lamp. I haven't tried doing that yet. So by trial and error I figured out that what grows very well in here are different Nymphea species. So in here I have Nymphea macrandra. It's actually a very difficult plant to find in the UK. I had to order it from EU, and it basically arrived as this really tiny little piece with just a couple of leaves, and I've ordered like 6 of them, and only 2 of them survived. But now they're growing really lush and really healthy, and I actually have a few smaller plants from them which I've planted in here, hoping that they will also start growing. Well, this here is a regular red lotus lily plant. I think the Latin name is Nymphea rubra, and it's pretty much standard Nymphea that you would find on most online places selling aquatic plants. In the back I have Nymphea zenkeri. You can only see one leaf of it, and it's hard to find. Well, no, you can see the actual plant in the back. Well, if you watch an earlier video of this fish tank, I used to have a massive Nymphea zenkeri, which was probably the size of a pond lily, and it basically was all over the tank. Leaves were absolutely massive on top, and at some point it was no longer manageable, so I trimmed all the leaves, and well, it decided to die on me. And only I think a half a year later it started to go back to life. So you can see these 2 leaves in the back. And one thing that I realized about Nymphea zenkeri is that it will only grow if its leaves will be allowed to reach the surface. Like up there you can see that leaf in here. So if you keep on trimming the leaves like I do with these 2 Nymphaeas, so that they grow short and colorful, Nymphea zenkeri does not work that way. It should have leaves reaching the surface, and well, now I'm allowing it to reach the surface. We'll see what's going to happen. With these two other nymphs, I constantly trim any leaves that try to leave the surface, reach the surface. Like you see this leaf in here, it is trying to reach the surface. I'm not going to let it do so, so I'm going to trim it soon. Because if they do reach the surface, they just become plain green leaves. They will cover all of the surface, and it's not going to look the same. It's not going to look as lush, colorful, and basically Nymphea rubra will be just green. It's not going to be red, and Nymphea macrandra will also be green. In the back, I have here absolute mass of Limnophila sessiflora in here, and Ludwigia repens in there. And to be honest, Limnophila sessiflora, alongside lilies, alongside nymphaeas, is the only plant that is thriving under this sort of LED lamps, because Ludwigia repens, this is a Ludwigia repens red, and in my other tanks upstairs it is actually growing red. In here it's just growing green. Well, I mean, yes, it looks okay, I'm not complaining about it, but it's not red. And that's clearly because of light. I'm not dosing any CO2 in any of my tanks, but upstairs, despite the lack of CO2, it's still growing red. So the problem is clearly with the lights. When it comes to substrate, this is a regular play sand from B&Q, and if you're in the UK, you probably know what B&Q is. It's a large hardware store, and play sand is the cheapest sand you can find. But I absolutely love it. It's actually a fine grain sand that is of natural color, and it's a quality sand, to be honest. With this brand of B&Q play sand, I only rinse it once or maybe twice, and it doesn't produce too much waste, so it's quite straightforward to use, and it's very cheap. So yeah, oh, I forgot to say that I also have here marbled hatchets, Carnegiella strigata. They're actually very small, and at some point I was worried that my Altums will try to hunt them, but so far Altums are absolutely disinterested in them, and they're difficult fish to keep because they would only feed from surface, and in my case they only eat fluval flakes and nothing else. Well, so that's what it is when it comes to this South American community. I don't have any plans to add anything else in here. You probably remember that I used to have a group of red-back Manakapuru angels in here, and they've grown up massive, and I rehomed the last 3 of them just a few days ago because they were a bit too voracious, and they did outcompete Altums for food, so they had to go. They were absolutely stunning, beautiful fish, but unfortunately there is no space for more angels in here. When it comes to this group of Altums, obviously they are going to grow a bit larger. They're still semi-adults, and they still have some space to grow more. So that being said, I don't think I have space for any more fish in here, and that's optimal population for this amount of water. When it comes to filtration, I'm using this Juvel box filter, which is in the back of the tank, and I mean it comes with the tank, and it's absolutely sufficient for this volume of water and for this number of fish. So I normally would clean the sponges maybe like once a month. I do weekly 50% water changes, and otherwise this tank had no issues so far. Well, the algae issue is now solved, at least for now, and I don't expect it to come back. Oh, okay, so one of the Echinodorus is out, so I will try to film it. Yeah, so this is a female Hygrophila CW28, absolutely stunning Echinodorus. Well, previously they were called Echinodorus, but after the recent classification, they were renamed into Hygrophila. And the males are in the back, and they have this high pectoral fins, as well as high dorsal fins. So they look a bit like Vulcan Coris CW111. Beautiful catfish, very difficult to source here, and unfortunately very expensive when they're available. So I've got this group from Bear Aquatics probably like 4 or 5 years ago. I have a video somewhere on the channel, and I'm really happy with them. They're stunning catfish. This is actually another of my Encausia Hygrophila tetras. They are a bit nervous sometimes, and outside of feeding time they generally just stay in their own territories, but they are really stunning tetras. Alright, so that's it in terms of the updates. Well, I don't promise that I will make any videos anytime soon for the reasons which I've outlined at the beginning of this video, but I will be making these updates from time to time because I like watching them myself afterwards, and I like seeing what sort of fish and what sort of setups I had, and there's a lot of useful and interesting information for me first of all, and if you find this sort of updates useful, I'm happy as well. So please leave your comments or likes or dislikes. And yeah, so I guess I will see you in one of the further videos.